welcome to my channel. So today I'm bringing you another layout with the awesome Like Forever July kit. This was a layout I also started-ish at a friend's. I took one of the sketches which showed 4 strips of pattern paper and then it had 4 little photos on it and then embellishment, etc. But when I was at my friend's house, I decided the paper did need some ink. And there's the sketch, you can just see it in the bottom left hand corner. So I started with the sketch. I did have a look at doing the different size pictures, but decided nope, I wanted to go with these two of my daughter and my nephew when she was rubbing his leg with a dock leaf because we were picking berries and the nettles were there. So I caught this cute picture. He was extra specially good and wasn't whinging about it at all. He was fantastic. So I wanted to make sure that I got this documented in my daughter's album. So here I am, they're inked and I've got the title of Nasty Nettles and I've got my 2 photos, but that is pretty much where the end of the sketch happens for me. It's quite often the way it works. I use them as a bit of a starting point and then carry on from there. So I also had in my add in the stash this old My Mind's Eye piece of felt with some stitching down it. So I like the way that looked tone on tone on the blue. So yeah, so I'm messing about with the positioning of the title, a couple of other little embellishments just so I can finalise how the layout's going to look or not. And I decided to back the photos in vellum. Just with them being black and white, I do like to back them in vellum. It just gives that extra little soft look. So I've popped the vellum on there and then I tried clustering in the strips of paper together. I tried them apart, overlapping slightly, and in the end I did decide to just go with straight. But before I did that, I decided to switch all the pieces around so that that little piece of felt stitching went near the photos. I thought that framed in the layout quite a bit better. So once I'd got that down, with stitching on my last layout, it also made me think, do I want to stitch on this layout? So I've got the pictures and the title how I like it. I then brought in the template that I'd used to stitch my last layout, so the pieces I've cut out on the cameo, and these were from the Hit Kit Club. And I laid a few of those out and I thought, oh, I do really like those. You know, the white lays over the white in some places, stays on the colour in others. And I like the way those looked. So what I decided to do, which may or may not have been a good idea, it meant the layout took a lot longer, was I stuck down my strips of paper first and I did make sure that they were straight. I just found it worked better for me, but they are offset at the top and the bottom, excuse me. And then I laid the extra pieces how I liked them around the photos clustered, and then I just stuck those down. I just put a little bit of Hermie in the middle and I did the big 3 first. So I just popped those down and I'm going to show you how I did one of them, but I will not make you sit through them all because I wouldn't know what to say why I'm going through them all either. So I went through all of my embroidery threads, which I do have quite a few because my watching the TV time is normally spent cross-stitching photos. So that's one of my other hobbies, and when I can't just sit and watch the TV. So when I tend to be zoned out a little bit, I tend to sit and cross stitch because I like to do more than one thing at once. So I chose a few different colours. I chose a peach, I chose a pink, I chose a navy, and then I did end up choosing a light pink up the top. So I poked a hole in the centre of what I now call a starburst, and then I did a line down each of the stems, not too bothered about whether it was in the middle or not. If I did have a big sewing machine that I could have done it on, it definitely wouldn't have been down the middle, so I figured it wouldn't matter for when I'm hand stitching them. I then used my threads, which I use the DMC threads. They're the ones that work for the stitcher photos that I do, that's provided by DMC. So I used those 2 strands out of a 6 strand for each one. And there we go. We have skipped now to the fact of it being done. Oof, I wish it was that quick straight off, but it wasn't. I then folded up some of the edges just to give them a little bit of dimension on there, but paid attention to keep quite flat where the title was going. And I really, really like the way this layout come together. It is probably one, if not my favourite that I've done from this kit. And it seemed to come together quite quick, even though it took time, if that makes sense. But anyway, I stuck down the letters. Now they did need extra glue, but only on the ones that were over the actual embroidery floss themselves, which is not surprising because they are quite thin, epoxy puffy type stickers. And yeah, they did need a bit of extra adhesive where they were touching the thread, just to make sure that they weren't going to move, as that's not the point of a title. And I'm not quite sure where I've gone here, either to make a brew or one of the kids shouted me. It could be anything. This was a Sunday afternoon session of scrapbooking, and yeah, quite often the camera's rolling and I'm here, there and everywhere, but normally due to the speed you don't really notice. So anyway, back to the layout. I'm roughing up a few more of the edges, just using a bone folder, just to give that little bit of dimension on the page, and a little bit extra oomph, especially where it became white on white. So I love the way this looks. I don't add too much to this now. I did bring in some My Mind's Eye clear stickers to see if they would work, but they weren't quite what I wanted. But I did feel as though I wanted a little bit of something on there. So I had a look through the die cut pieces and I found this lovely little green one that was Sweet Moments. And while this layout is going in my daughter's album, she's not a pinky kind of girl, and also my nephew was on there. So I did want to bring a little bit more of a boy look, should we say, to this layout. So I pulled out a little label punch to give that a go, but it didn't quite work. So I went back to my trusty circle punches and I punched out of the green paper. It was, if I find where it is, it was a 1 3/8 inch circle, and then I used my 1 inch circle to punch one out of the very small amount of navy that I have left from the kit, and I inked around the edges of those, and I felt that just gave the layout only a touch of a hint of lime green, but I did feel it went really, really well with the other elements on this page, and I love the way it came together. So I've got this little Sweet Moments across the bottom, and then up in the top corner I've got a couple of little circles. I did bring in a peach heart that I'd cut out from the paper, but that wasn't quite working for me. Even though I do have the peach hearts in the paper to the right, I didn't feel as though the rest of the layout needed it. I tried cutting out a flower, but that wasn't working for me either. So I went back to my embellishments, bits and pieces, and I pulled out these little Amy Tangerine word strips, and up in the top corner it says everything is a good idea, and then under Sweet Moments it says always, and then in the bottom right hand corner it says can't forget indeed. I then pulled out some Simple Stories little labels, and I just put one of them just to the right of the picture, which I will add the date on, though I can't remember whether that was on the video or not. And then I've got a little chipboard chevron there as well, which I think was from a past Freckle Fawn kit. And apart from that, all I really added then was a couple of the little circles from the Millie and Jude up into the top and the bottom cluster, and a little tiny bright pink heart in between Sweet and Moments on that label. I also added a chipboard piece up in the top corner because I thought it really, really suited, that said not feeling it. And to mirror that, down in the bottom corner, I just added a Simple Stories arrow in black. So there's not too much black on this layout, but with the black and white photos, I felt it just needed that little pop. And that is pretty much how the layout ended up looking. I think I'm just going to add that little heart I mentioned, and that's it done. So I hope you've enjoyed this layout. I really like it, and I'm glad that you've joined me while I've got to create this layout. What a weird choice of words. Anyway, thanks for visiting, and I'll speak to you all soon.